afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We are happy to have you at the Lit Gals, our monthly chat about books and all things reading. I am Martie Hoofer. April Long is with us today. And real quick, obviously there are normally three of us. Anna is not here today due to some technical difficulties. So we will catch her next month. And all right, April, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, so I'm April Long and I teach online for Indiana Online Academy. We've been operating for 1 year, so we're at our the end of our year. You can feel it in the air. Everyone's ready to be done. And I've taught English for 16 years, brick and mortar and virtual, lots of levels, mostly high school.
Awesome. And April, you want to tell us about the amazing accomplishment you just had? I'm putting you on the spot.
Yes, but I did. I just graduated from Butler last weekend with my Master's of Fine Arts in Creative Nonfiction. So I wrote my thesis was a memoir. It probably won't go anywhere for quite a while, but it's written and it's out there, and I defended and I passed and graduated. Thank you.
Oh, we are so excited for you, April. That is awesome. And actually, we have a viewer today. This is a former friend, or not a former friend, a friend of mine, Casey. She's joining us. Casey is a huge reader. So, Casey, if you have anything to contribute to this conversation, feel free to jump right on in. Well, I'm Martie Hoofer. I am the digital content manager here at Keep Indiana Learning. And I have 10 years of classroom experience. I taught 7th grade reading and writing, and gives me a lot of reasons to know a lot about graphic novels. So, April, what are your thoughts about graphic novels and what's your experience with them? And let's chat a little.
My experience is very little. So I am definitely going to write down all the titles that we talk about today. And, I'm teaching 7th and 8th grade for the first time this year, and they will ask me quite often, kind of often when we're talking about reading, have you read this graphic novel? Have you read this graphic novel? And so I know my summer reading list has to include some graphic novels so that I can be with them, what they're reading, what they love. So my experience is very little. And I'm excited to kind of learn a little more from you today. Sorry, Anna can't be here to help with that. But what about you? Did you ever teach them in the classroom?
I did. I taught them in the classroom and use them in a variety of ways. But before we get into my thoughts, I want to ask you just an honest, pointed question. Yeah. When people mention graphic novels, do you feel like there's an asterisk behind them that reading a graphic novel is somehow less than reading a novel? What are your thoughts on how a graphic novel compares literary-wise, that's a big term to throw out there, with a regular novel? Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts?
Okay, I think I feel about this the same way that I feel about when we talked about audiobooks. I think reading is reading is reading is reading. And that's actually what I said to my 8th graders, because we were talking about what books we had read this year, because we read 3 books this year, and I kept congratulating them on that. And, a little kid said, oh, I never read except for the ones we read in class. And then that brought up graphic novels. And I said, that counts. Reading is reading. If you're reading a nonfiction article, because somebody said, I only like to read, about history. And I said, that's reading, that counts. So I think that also we just don't want to stigmatize that at all for kids ever, to say that they're holding a book in their hand, but it doesn't count as reading. Yeah.
Right. I had never thought about that we need to take that stigma away, because you're right. They are holding a book in their hands. Mm-hmm. And my opinion about graphic novels is, I'll get to one opinion about it when I talk about one of my books, but also it's such a sense of accomplishment. You're much like with novels in verse, you're turning pages quickly. So for kids who don't love reading, they're getting a sense of accomplishment. So I think that's a great thing. And I would also argue, it's more complex reading because you are not only reading words, but you're interpreting pictures at the same time.
Right.
So granted, yes, you're not forming those pictures in your mind, but you're also reconciling the pictures on the page with what may be in your brain. So I would argue it's I don't want to say more complex approach to reading, but it is as complex as words on the page.
Yeah, I mean, this is a very novice scientific understanding here from me, but I'm sure there's research out there. But if your eyes or ears are taking in information and your brain is processing it into like a story or into like telling you information, I mean, I just don't know how we couldn't argue that your brain is doing the same thing with different senses. Like but it's happening up there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. I love that. It's happening up there.
Yeah.
What a great phrase. Because it is. And there's a lot of things happening up there using that right and left side. There's a lot going on. I'm sure you're right that there is science behind this. And now that makes me curious about the research. What does the research say? I wonder if I can find a graphic novel about the research about graphic novels. So I want to throw a thought out there that Anna posted. Anna's watching us through YouTube, and I clicked the wrong button.
Anna.
So give me a second to grab the right button. Anna's thought, I never thought they were as important or better than a novel until I read American Born Chinese. It is as complex. American Born Chinese is not a novel, or a graphic novel that any of us plan to talk about today, but it is phenomenal. I cannot think of the author off the top of my head. Anna, if you've got that and could put it in the comments, that'd be awesome. But he's done a number of graphic novels and they're super powerful. And so yes, American Born Chinese, great one to recommend. April, I know Anna gave you her title, so if you want to put those out there, that'd be awesome, and then we can chat about those for just a little bit.
Yeah, and I know, Martie, you know a little about them, and Anna can put anything in the comments. I hope I'm saying the name correctly. So it's 2 books by the same author, Smile and Guts, both by Raina Telgemeier, I believe.
Yes.
So you can start it on that.
Those are, she's written a number of books, and they are classic middle school literature. Middle schoolers would so relate to her books. They are quite popular. They were very popular in my classroom. My only issue in my classroom with graphic novels is they are the books that were most often stolen. Which is in a way is great.
It's hard to get mad.
Yeah, it's very hard to get mad. It means the kids were reading them. I don't want to even know how many copies of Smile I have bought in my 11-year teaching career. But I would say it's probably not a book for younger middle schoolers, but those 7th and 8th graders, her books are so relatable to them. So they're a great and they tend to be girl focused. I hate to call girl books and boy books because books are just books, but her novels definitely appeal to girls, where a lot of graphic novels are in that manga and that genre coming out of the Southeast Asian countries, and those often appeal more to boys, where Raina's are definitely girl driven, middle grade and lower high school novels. So yeah, her books have a lot of appeal for middle school girls.
Cool.
Yeah. Let's see. We do have a couple more comments. Yes. So there is the author of American Born Chinese. Let me throw it up there. He also wrote Dragon Hoops, and he wrote Boxers and Saints. It's a box set. Same historical event told from the 2 perspectives, and they're sold together. And when you lay the books together, the covers make a complete picture.
I love that.
Oh, so very cool. So Mr. Yang there, his books are phenomenal. So yes. Oh, I didn't know this. Raina's books are based on her own life growing up. Explains why they're so very relatable. Yeah. All right. So April, what books did you bring today?
Okay.
I love the books you bring because they're always so different than anything that I would find. So enlighten us.
Yes. So the true story of this was when we said this last month, I was like, I'm going to go to the library. I'm going to look at some graphic novels. Well, of course, life happened and I didn't make that happen soon enough. And I was like, well, I know I have one on my shelf. And then I was like, wait, I know I have another one somewhere else. And so I thought, let me just authentically give you what's on my shelf. Okay. And so they are both sort of this one I read in grad school, Out on the Wire, and it's by Jessica Abel, and it is subtitled The Storytelling Secrets of the New Masters of Radio. We, during the pandemic, for one of my classes, created a podcast because we were doing everything, and we shared our own nonfiction narratives as a podcast. It was amazing and it was fun, and we used this as the textbook for our class. But even though it's based on that, we made it a point to say in that class, let's take the storytelling ideas, and it is sort of written like this. The whole thing is a comic. So I don't know. I guess I don't even know the real rules of what makes a graphic novel. But this is graphic, right?
I would call that a graphic novel. It's pictures and words put together to tell a story.
Yeah.
Sounds like a definition to me.
Yeah. And so it was just a really cool way, one, for us to have a different way to look at a text. But also we took all of the important lessons she was saying about storytelling, which is done so amazingly in podcasting. And we applied it to our own writing. And so you can do that, of course. Any teacher could look at this and apply ideas to a classroom. So definitely more for like adult teacher. And the forward is by Ira Glass. There's stuff about Radiolab. There's interviews with Sarah Koenig. Like if you're a podcast fan, you will enjoy what you learn from this. And so my second one, actually, I picked up years ago when I was at, I think, NCTE. I can't even remember. It was a long time ago. What It Is by Linda Berry. And you may know Linda Berry because she is like a cartoonist, like does a lot of other graphic novels, and I can't think of the other titles at this moment. But this is sort of like a book on creativity. Ooh. Now the pages are full. They are full of images, and I'm sorry I'm not getting a very good picture here. But it's also, some pages have writing. Okay. And what she does is she tells her own story of how creativity came into her life. And so you get a lot of her childhood, and that creativity sort of started as a coping mechanism for her. Very relatable. But again, the book is maybe more geared towards adults guiding students in creativity. So that's why I picked it up at a conference, because it was like, take this for your classroom. There's like prompts in there, basically. Like there's a section called like essay prompts, but of course there aren't really essay prompts. They're images. And it's another way to get your students writing and to get them to think about their own creativity through images and words. But, it's another way to unlock it. And also it's a good way to get students to return to their childhood, because that's what she does, and the creativity of childhood.
I love that, because how much creativity do we lose as we age? And I don't mean age like 40, I mean age like 12.
Yes, they just zoop it out of you. And
and that shoop it out of you, I think as educators, we're somewhat guilty of doing that.
I know. Yeah.
So how about bringing that back intentionally and with purpose? Mm-hmm. Because if you think about it, creativity and innovation is critical for our culture. Otherwise, we would still be riding horses, and I don't want to ride a horse to work.
No, thank you.
No, exactly. No, thank you. So,
What do you have for us today?
Okay, well, I really struggled with what to bring to the table. So I scrolled my Instagram account. Because of teaching middle school, I have read a lot of graphic novels. Like I said, I did a postmodern unit. Actually, I did it in May one year where all we did was read graphic novels. And I had them in the classroom, and then so the kids read them, they learned about whatever the topic was, but then they had to create their own postmodern information about the book. So that was so that started me down this road of reading graphic novels. So I wouldn't say it's something I read a lot of now at this point, but I do enjoy them. And every time I read one, I'm like, why don't you do this more? Because you do really like them.
Yeah.
So I have a variety on my desk here. This is the one I've probably read most recently. It's called When Stars Are Scattered by Victoria Jameson and Omar Mohammed. And it's a true story. And I always tell students, don't let the thickness of graphic novels sometimes scare you off, because this one is really thick. Part of it is because they're printed on thick paper, because of this one happens to be in color. So it's beautiful to look at. But Omar and his brother, true story, are growing up in a refugee camp in Kenya. They lived there for 7 years. I think so often we think about refugee camps, you're there a few months and then you move on with your life. Well, that's not always the case.
Right.
And watching Omar grow up through this book, you can follow Omar now on Instagram and Twitter, which is really cool to see where he is today, and how he's giving back to the refugee community. But it humanizes some people that we just see on the news and we think they're just far away. So it humanizes the situation. So I love this book. It won quite a few awards, and just phenomenal. So I like this one. It's approachable. It's real. That's why I brought this one. The other one is the reason I like graphic novels, and this is why I like them for students. I'm not an economist. I'm not even sure I'm saying the word correctly. Anything about economy and numbers and like big numbers, I mean, my brain just shuts down, because that's just not how my brain is wired. That's not me. And so I heard about this book that it was written by an economist about immigration and borders. And I'm like, if it's in a graphic novel, maybe I can do this. And so I picked up this book called Open Borders: The Science and Ethics of Immigration. It's fascinating. Authors are Brian Kaplan and Zach Wienersmith. And again, I know nothing about borders. I know nothing about immigration. Full disclosure, I should probably read this book again, because I would learn more the second time through.
Probably.
But it makes hard, scary topics approachable.
That's awesome. That's what we all need, right? But definitely what kiddos need.
Yeah.
I mean, well, what is that for? What age group do you think?
Okay, great question. I guess let's go back to this one for a second.
Okay.
Middle school and up, totally fine with this book. Completely great for middle school and up. I feel like this was probably more high school.
Okay.
Because I mean, at the end of the day, let's be honest, these are topics that are a little bit dry.
Sure.
But I mean, pictures make everything better.
Yeah. And just even the content. I mean, what if you could pull that into an economics class?
It would be phenomenal.
Yeah, that's cool.
It could totally come into government class, an econ class, a sociology. Both of them would work for sociology.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, at the high school level, there's a lot you could do with this book. I did bring a couple more that I just feel like I real quick want to share. Full disclosure, not read this one. The Unwanted Stories of the Syrian Refugees by Dan Brown, but I have read other things by Dan Brown. You can see his books are really small.
Yeah.
This one's about the Dust Bowl. It was great. It would great middle school text to pair with Out of the Dust, which is a novel in verse. So about the Dust Bowl in the 1920s. But this one is on my list to read. You can see it's got a lot of stickers on it. And so an award winner here. Both of these by Dan Brown.
Okay.
So I just love graphic novels for how approachable they make hard topics and how approachable they are for students because they're not intimidating. There's pictures, and who doesn't like pictures?
Right.
Yeah. All right. Well, we are at the end of our time. It is always amazing to me how fast this time goes. It just flies. So for June, we are going to come to you on a different day. The Lit Gals Live are going to be a part of the Virtually Different Keep Indiana Learning Summer Conference. So you will be able to catch us here on Facebook. On Facebook, where did that come from? Able to catch us here on YouTube in our Keep Indiana Learning live stream, but we are part of the Virtually Different Conference, and we would love to see you there. You can participate live with our show. We haven't quite set out what our agenda is going to be, so stay tuned for that, but you can register for the Virtually Different Summer Conference for $25. It is a steal. Total steal. I couldn't buy the pile of books on my desk for $25. And with the $25, you get live access to the content. Obviously, live access June 14th and 15th, but then also recorded access for most of the sessions for up to a year. So if you can't join live, the learning is still there waiting for you, which is just a great deal. So we would love to see you there. We are presenting on June 15th. I don't remember the time off the top of my head, but you can look for us on June 15th. Oh, at 10.
I think.
Okay. Thank you. I didn't remember. So, all right. Well, April, any parting words before we go?
No, I'm going to read a lot of graphic novels this summer.
Yes, and I'm excited to check out that creativity one you talked about.
Very cool.
So thank you very much for joining us. Happy reading, and we will see you next month at the Virtually Different Summer Conference.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.